You're listening to the Experience of the Soul podcast channel, bringing you inspiration, teachings, and practices to support your spiritual journey. Welcome to the Experience of the Soul podcast with Cynthia Alice Anderson, a weekly show helping you grow, prosper, and evolve. Today, episode 377, Dr. Karen Tilstra. And now, Experience of the Soul.
Hello, my dear friends, and welcome to the Experience of the Soul podcast. My name is Cynthia Alice Anderson. I am the host. I'm also lovingly known as RCA. So grateful to have you along the journey with us today. We're honored to bring you the show as always, and pretty excited because we have a special guest in our studio today. You'll meet in a few minutes. But first, we just want to welcome you to the show. And of course, I honor my producer, Mr. Shawn Kilgore, who makes us all sound and look good. Shawn, you're amazing. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. You're amazing. I think you're amazing too. And I honor you. I know you. So welcome everybody. Today is Monday, September 8th. This is episode 377 of the Experience of the Soul podcast with Cynthia Alice Anderson. As always, I feel very blessed and honored to be here with you. Thank you for joining us, whether you're listening on your favorite podcast platform or joining us for the video podcast on YouTube. We appreciate you being here. Before we jump into today's content, of course, like Cynthia just said, we got a great guest lined up for you today. Super excited to introduce you to her. Before we get to it, though, we want to, as always, dive into this week in spiritual history. What's interesting about this week is there were so many happenings for this day, Monday, for September 8th, that most of what we're talking about is actually happening this day. We're going to start with September 8th is celebrated across many Christian traditions as the Feast of the Nativity of Mary. So we're honoring the birth of the mother of Jesus, essentially. Only three birthdays are marked liturgically in the church: Jesus, John the Baptist, and Mary, whose life is seen as the first light of the dawn before Christ. In parts of India, this day blossoms into what's called Monty Fest, which is like a joyful harvest celebration of new grain and new life with flower offerings, music, and feasting. Again, sounds like a great time, great celebration, right?
I hate to admit that Kool and the Gang just came into my mind. Celebrate. Okay.
Yeah. So this is really just a moment to reflect on divine beginnings and the nurturing power of the feminine and our soul's readiness to receive love.
Absolutely. Beautiful. Beautiful, Shawn. Yeah, these are really special.
Yeah. And then we move on into the first parish was founded on this day in 1565. So this is the first Catholic parish in what is now the United States. This was founded in St. Augustine, Florida, not too far from where we are.
Oldest city in the U.S., right?
Yeah, yep. Spanish settlers gathered with the local indigenous people to share a Mass of Thanksgiving, making it the oldest continuously operating Christian congregation in the country. This historical monument marks not just colonial expansion, but a deep spiritual yearning to plant seeds of worship, ritual, and community in new lands.
Ah, yes.
Yeah. We move on to also September 8th in 1636 was the founding of Harvard College. This is the first institution of higher learning in North America, established by Puritan leaders. Harvard's early mission was to ensure an educated clergy and to nurture thoughtful spiritual leadership. That was their original mission.
Oh, what an idea. Thoughtful spiritual leadership. Okay,
Right?
great.
Exactly.
Let's keep that in mind.
So today we try to look at this as a reminder of the power of spiritual curiosity and the legacy of education as a sacred pursuit.
Wow.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we move on into David Unveiled. This was September 8th, 1504, in the city of Florence, unveiled Michelangelo's David, a towering sculpture, of course, we're all familiar, carved from a single block of marble. Though not overtly religious, David's symbolism, which is of courage, faith, beauty, and divine favor, has stirred centuries of reflection. His steady gaze reminds us of the strength we carry when we face our giants with heart and purpose and trust in something greater.
Ah, beautiful.
And we're going to love this one because this is our just for fun. This is actually the only happening. This one is this coming Sunday, September 14th, is observed as Hug Your Hound Day.
Oh, where's my pup when I need him?
I know, right? So yeah, this coming Sunday, the 14th, is Hug Your Hound Day. It invites us to celebrate our loyal companions, and maybe even reflect on what it means to live in unconditional love.
Amen to that. Yeah. Mine teaches me that every day. Thank you, Shawn. 100%. That is awesome.
Yeah. So give your pup an extra squeeze on Sunday, or just take a moment to notice where unconditional love already surrounds you. So want to leave you real quick with something to think about as you move throughout your week. This week, we celebrated spiritual beginnings of people, places, ideas, and art. So we want you to reflect on what part of your own spiritual journey is just now being born, and how might you honor it as sacred, even in its earliest forms.
Beautifully said, Shawn. And, we do have so many people new on the spiritual journey and coming from all different religious understandings and backgrounds. And what I love about, your moment in spiritual history is it is the honoring of all paths, ultimately leading to God, and us moving into more awareness of our soul and its possibility. And so I bless you in that and thank you for it, and really honor our listeners, because there are so many of us in new places. Even if we've been on the journey a while, we're growing, we're evolving, and, learning more of the truth. And many of us are in a new beginning, even if we've been on the journey for 20 years. So I think it's really important what you said. I also want to remember, Shawn, to pause and thank all of our new subscribers. Our subscribers on YouTube are up over 100%, which is like, can that happen? I guess it did.
Yeah.
And in the last 30 days. So it's great. And it also makes me happy that more people are going to hear about our guests and all the great information and heart that she brings to really important work. So yeah.
Excellent.
Thank you, friends. And welcome to our new subscribers.
Yes, absolutely. And speaking of, let's get into it. So today's guest is someone we have been looking forward to introducing you to, and I'm sure you guys will share the story of how you met and everything. But Dr. Karen Tilstra is a creative powerhouse. She has spent her career helping individuals and organizations break through old patterns and tap into what's truly possible. She is the founder of Creativity Effect, and over the years, she's led hundreds of design thinking projects across industries, from healthcare systems and universities to government agencies, and even the Orlando Magic, which is really cool.
That is cool.
Yeah, right? She's passionate about helping others, helping leaders and teams innovate in ways that are not only effective, but also deeply human. Karen holds a PhD in creative leadership and is also a licensed educational psychologist. One of the things we love most about her is how she blends practical tools with big picture vision. Her recent book is called The Deathline, and it explores the hidden beliefs that hold us back and offers simple but powerful steps to move through fear and into creative freedom. She brings wisdom, warmth, and some serious innovation chops. We just know you're going to love her. So let's welcome into our studio, Dr. Karen Tilstra.
Whoa! Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Yes, we're happy to have you, Dr. Karen. And, I've been familiar with your work for so long, and want to just tell a little bit to our listeners, because the feedback we get is people are interested in how I am familiar with the guest. And one of the things that I first heard about you was the great work you did at Florida Hospital Innovation Labs, otherwise known as Phil, which was many years ago. Now it was, we often say things now are pre-COVID, right. Pre or post-COVID. Yeah. And I, just heard of the impact you made on the healthcare system, but not just on a system, but really what you do is you impact individuals to think differently. And we're all about that on this channel, right? To open to new ideas and move past limits. So we just honor you in that work for sure.
It's a blessing, and it's, I get as much out of it as I think. In fact, I get more out of it than the people that we're helping. It's a very rewarding and never, ever, ever dull.
Yes. Well, I think so much of what you speak to aligns with us because, we talk so much about the soul, that we're more than, say, our age, our race, or our condition, or whatever we label ourselves, and that there lives within us this infinite possibility. And so I feel like you come at it from a slightly different way, but we get to some of the same ideas. And that's why I think our listeners are going to so connect with some of your work with the creativity effect and even your book. And that was the other piece I wanted to mention, just to make sure, and we'll put a link in the show notes so people can purchase that. But I did read that book, your book, The Deathline, and I found it to be really transformative as you walk people through just right up to that line and seeing where people can finally transform to see that there is such a thing. So wherever you want to go with this, but I'd love for you to talk a little bit about the book, a little bit about your work, with the creativity effect, but I just feel like your book will help point people to what we're talking about so well.
Okay. No, I'm happy to talk about it. Here it is.
Yeah.
When a book comes out, you say, wow, I could write it again so much better. So I kind of had to just deal with that. It's funny. I didn't know that would happen, but it's like, oh my gosh, if I could just write it again. But my publisher says, Karen, you've just got to move on. Anyway, I do want to edit it again, though, but that doesn't matter. No, this book, The Deathline, stopping the #1 all-time killer of human potential. That's what I say. Yeah. Because I have seen firsthand when we've worked with people on creating new ideas, solving problems, working as groups, cross-functional groups that for different levels, frontline people with executives.
Yes.
I have just started noticing a pattern that people were gung-ho to be in a project or gung-ho to work on something they were trying to get better until something happened in their mind that they thought, oh, wow, if I go any further, I don't know what's going to happen. Yeah. Bad things might happen. So I stop. And that's what I call a deathline. It's an imaginary line we draw that we will not go over because we're afraid of the consequences that may happen on the other side, but they might not happen. But I have seen over and over, or someone pushing you too close to a death line, say your fear of rejection or fear of talking in front of people. And the closer you get pushed to that, the worse your behavior becomes. Yeah. And over the years, I just saw people lowering their possibility, their potential, their opportunity because of this imaginary line they drew. And we all have it. So I termed it the death line because I felt so many things die on that point. Now, I have had people say to me, Karen, that's such a scary word, the death line. One lady that I was working with, she said, I really want to read your book, but I'm so afraid to because that death line is scary to me. I said, well, actually, maybe that's a death line. But I actually wanted it to be kind of a drastic word to kind of wake us up because we lose so much of our potential when we have this line that we don't even realize. It actually starts to make us feel safe when we're just lowering our potential, reducing our ability. And I say this to all the teams we work with. Everybody's created with leadership potential. So don't let your death line limit that.
Oh, I think you're absolutely right. And I love the word, the death line, because it does wake you up. I think that, we kind of dance around it and we have all these coping mechanisms to hide it. But when you say death line, that word death, it's in our culture in general, though, we don't use the word a lot. So that's another reason.
No, we have a lot of euphemisms for the word death.
Yeah. Yeah. For a while, many years ago, when I was in my ministerial training, I was a hospital chaplain. And the hospital, they didn't want to use the word death, use the word expire.
Yeah. It sounds like perspiring. Yeah.
Yeah. And the family goes, wait, what? And I would have to say, that was from the doctor's standpoint, the clinical standpoint. And I'd have to say they died. Yeah. So anyway, I love the word. And it seems to me too, with your psychological background, what I love about this idea of the death line is it takes out words like complex and all of that and all the psychological, and we just go, you know what? I'm just avoiding this. It's probably family of origin. It's probably complexes and all that, those things. Yeah. But sometimes even the way we talk about it gets in the way. So, right? So,
and I know this sounds kind of like flippant or like cold, but so many times those things in reality don't matter at the moment.
I agree. Yes.
If we could just say, I'm going to embrace the moment, the present, I'm going to step in. I'm going to just step in. And we have a couple myths we operate by here in the Western world. And one is, I have to know everything before I start.
Yeah.
And that really holds us back, because if we're trying to create something new or solve a problem or just do something different, we can't know everything before we start. And so I just think that is an interesting thought to hold in our mind. We can't know everything before we start. So let's start. And we don't ever have to go so far as we can't turn back. But I kind of would like if the Deathline could become in our vernacular, in our language, that we say, oh, wow, I just hitting my deathline. I need to take more courage and step forward. So we don't subconsciously just close off the possibilities that we had, or the words we could say something. And I hear people say, oh, I didn't speak up. I didn't dare speak up because I didn't know what would happen. But then what was lost? That's the thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Yes. And I think you're exactly right, Matt. In my work with people, and I work with CEOs, department heads, and everything else. And the same thing happens at every level, which is I just couldn't say what I wanted to say. And so there is fear, and it is almost a fear, like it's an unrealistic in terms of usually the punishment facing the the risk, but it's literally like, I feel like I'm going to die if I do this. The fear gets so big. Mm-hmm.
And in fact, I was just meeting with someone this morning that was telling me that actually there's a very successful person, and she was lamenting a little bit about, I was in a meeting and I just was afraid to speak out.
Right.
They wanted some feedback, and this person is such a nice person.
Yes.
I can't imagine anything they would say that would have been hard. But so she said, I just remained silent. And then I was so mad at myself afterwards that I could have, and then the moment passed. But then I think, well, maybe the moment hasn't totally passed. You can go back and follow up. But even top leaders, I've had top leaders say, we bring them in to get feedback on an idea. And oh, that's great. And I said, well, did you really like it? Well, I had some ideas, but I didn't want to discourage. They were young and I didn't want to discourage them. I said, no, but feedback is not bad. It's just simply information. And it's a lifeline. It just is.
It is.
And if we're afraid to give it, we can always do it kindly. We don't have to be yelling or shouting or person is a terrible idea. We can just give feedback in a way that's helpful. Like what I'd like is maybe something, a question, or this might work this way. We just clump it up. If we could unclump what we're fearing or what we're hesitating on, it often becomes manageable. And so can see, we've got this line we drew that we refused to step over. But if we started to unpack it, it's like, maybe it's not so bad.
Right. And I think that's it. And that's another connection with the work we do here on the channel. All of our shows really are about becoming conscious beings. And that's what you're doing. You're making the behavior that is unconscious conscious.
Right.
So then we can make a choice, because maybe there's a time where, like, maybe it's not right to speak up, but we're not speaking up, not because of fear, but because it's a conscious choice. And and I think that's what you're seeking to do and doing extremely well, which is why we're bringing you on the show, is helping people see that these unconscious, as you call them, hidden beliefs really are limiting our movement forward. They're limiting our personal power in the world. And certainly, as I would relate to it, our spiritual power, because I believe our power is, part of the universal life force that many of us call God, So I think it is super, super important, as you're saying, to identify it. And I think that's what your work really helps people do, right? Identify what the deathline is.
Right. And this is one of the things we do. But I'm really about helping people, invite them into new mindset, skills, and tools, so they can actually ignite the natural creativity that sits inside of them. Because if we're alive, we're creative. And most people don't realize that. Most people are like, no, not me. I'm not creative. Phyllis is creative, or Jim is creative. But we're all creative. If we're alive, we're creative. Yeah. And that is really something I am passionate to help people realize all the gifts we bring to the world. And everybody has gift or gifts to deliver. And if we let things like the Deathline hamper us, those gifts aren't seen and the world doesn't receive them.
Yes. And I think that's where your innovative piece, your design thinking, comes in, is that you really bring that out in the individual. I've seen you do it, from a TEDx stage, and, I've seen clips, here and there of your work, and heard very deeply from some of the partners that work with you, Richard Paul being one of them.
Oh,
and yeah, and about just simply how you help people innovate the way they're thinking, and from themselves, like all the possibilities that exist right here.
Right. And
yeah.
And for some reason, the way life goes, we start out as children so creative and we're curious. And
yes, that curiosity.
Learning to walk. If we fall, nobody cares. We celebrate us and encourage us on. But as we get older, we don't want to make a mistake. We don't want to look bad. We don't want to look stupid. We don't want to get rejected. So we create these mental models that supposedly keep us safe. But in the meantime, they're just shrinking our creativity. They're shrinking our levels to be empathetic because the focus turns too much into ourselves. And if you've ever been in a meeting where it's kind of stiff and then someone lightens it up a little, people just relax. And it's like, oh, it's okay. Because I have this theory that the people around us are, if you know them or don't know them, they're future friends. We can all have our future collaborators. And if we look at the world with friendly eyes, especially people we work around, that they're not threats. The world looks a whole lot different and we have different opportunities arise. But as long as we have unidentified death lines that keep us on a very narrow path, we will never reach our full potential. And that's a loss. I mean, it's a loss to everybody. And we all have potential, tremendous potential. Sometimes workplaces aren't set up to really ignite that. Yes. Unfortunately. But
yes, and I think you're right. It does become almost a personal development journey that then we take into the workplace and our other relationships, that it's not always found in the workplace because we're surrounded by people stuck in the same limits. And I think that's why your work is so important, because it is going into the more, mind focused rather than creativity focused, workplaces. And certainly in the clinical field, that your work that you've done there, those fields, I only know about it somewhat, not to the degree that you do, because I worked in it for a time, but those patterns are so locked in. And that's why I thought the work you did with Florida Hospital Innovation Labs was so important, because it was helping, sometimes get treatments quicker to individuals. It was helping the doctors be more efficient and think of things in a new way. It was just really, really.
Well, also, the powerful thing about when we create innovation spaces that are human-centered and rooted like in design thinking.
Yes.
The communication, the dialogue, the collaboration is highly effective across all levels. I don't know, just was it was so inspiring to see those teams work and what they came up with. And so many people said, I've been working here for 20 years. I didn't have any idea that I would get to work on a project, or that my idea would go forward, or I would be able to speak in front of the executives telling what our project did. So it was on so many levels, but it still gets back to the fact that we have to be willing to take a step forward out of our comfort zone if we want to create something. And when I was little, I don't know why I started doing this, but I do remember my uncle was teaching me how to jump off the high dive. And so I was probably about 9. And so I was standing up there, and then I told myself, you have to do it before you count to 9. And I just started counting, and I said, okay, walked to the dive board, jumped off. Well, that became a model for me. Anytime I was hesitant to do something or afraid, I would tell myself, oh, don't start counting, because I never got to 9. So I just use that. If I'm nervous about something or afraid, like I want to do it. I mean, of course, it's not something life-threatening.
Sure, of course, within reason. Yeah.
Do it before you get to 9. And I've always used that, and it's worked. I mean, it's so anything we could do to help ourselves push us out of our comfort zone, past our deadlines, or face our deadlines. It's anything that helps you. It is a good thing. It's a tool.
Right. And I think it is important to say, I mean, this goes without saying, I'm sure, but these are not jumping off a cliff without a net. These are calculated risks that push us past our comfort zone, but that we clearly see is ours to do. And that's the piece, you're the thing you have to push through is going to be different for me. And that's why I think it is such a personal, journey with this, but it is about our growth, development, and evolution as a being and as a soul. As I think about it, it's like it helps us grow into new ways of being. And my fundamental belief is as we move into these new arenas, as you say, new possibilities open for us because we move into like this new level of consciousness where we know we're safe in ourselves. It's like, no, we don't need everybody's approval to move. We're safe in ourselves.
Right. And most people are thinking about themselves anyway. I mean, I don't say it negatively, but you brought up that we wouldn't jump off a cliff without a net. So I bring it out in the book that there are some death lines that are physical or social that we really don't do. Like I get the example in the book, you wouldn't go into an elevator, the only person you go in the elevator with one other person and stand so close to them that your shoulders are touching or your hips are touching.
Yeah.
We got to
be reasonable. Yeah.
Right? Or you wouldn't jump out of a plane without a parachute because we know what happens when you do that.
Right.
But one thing that I heard one time, this isn't original to me, but the best way to predict the future is to create it.
Yeah.
And that really was a motivating statement to me. Yeah. And I think it ties into the Deathline that if we're willing to say, I've got things in my life that I've drawn a line off and drawn an invisible line, and I won't cross over it because I fear the consequences that may or may not happen, because many times they don't happen. And if I want to have a future that really does honor my potential and my gifts, we have to come to terms with the death lines in our life. We have to stop and think, what is it? What am I willingly holding back on because I'm afraid of something that may not happen? Yeah. But if I do it, and then I think 99% of the time, the things that we're afraid of, if they do come our way, they come in a less impact way, or they are able to be managed, or they come slower. But most of the time, when we move, the world opens up a little more. It just keeps opening up more and more.
Go.
No, sorry. Well, go ahead. I was done.
well, I think it's so important, so many aspects of what you're saying, and it was making me smile because I just feel that with so much going on in the world that has us all very confused, angry, sad, that the power and we feel powerless at times, but we're not powerless to create our own future. We're not powerless to take a step forward, to face some of these internal fears. And I want to acknowledge too that to do this, you have to have a certain amount of self-awareness and self-worth to even be able to be thinking this direction. So I want to just honor all the people listening, the people that you've worked with that read your book. You have to have a certain amount of like self-acceptance to say, I'm going to be okay. I can take this risk. And so I just know that the people that are needing to hear this are hearing it today. And, I just really honor the souls that are seeking, to do this, because I think of our world, how it could look if we were all doing this.
It would be amazing.
It would be an amazing place to be. Yeah. Instead of living in so much fear, so much worry, so much a doubt and kind of hiding. It's like, I feel like doing your work as a coming out party for our gifts and talents. And I think it's so, so important. So go ahead, Karen, what were you going to say?
Well, I just wanted to follow up on what you were saying. I have this thing in the book that I call the toll booth technique. That sometimes we have to go through a toll booth to slow down. And it's really when we are facing with something that's uncomfortable or fearful to us, not life-threatening, because we're not talking about life-threatening things, but to pause and breathe, and then ask what I call the mother of all questions: what's really going on here? With me, with outside, with what? And when we stop and create space so we can think and become present and ask the question, what's really going on? what's really going on with me, or what's really going on with them? Let me find out. Let's be curious and wonder. That is, to me, one of the best ways to actually start to identify where our death lines sit or lay. But the toll booth, and I thought about it because I talked about in the book that I was trying to think of an example of how to really, what we need to do is just pause, breathe. And then I was going down far away, and I had not uploaded the transponder, and I had to go through a toll booth. And it was a 10-cent toll booth. It was a 10-cent toll. it just cracked me up. I thought that's hilarious. But I had to pull over, slow down, find the dime. Amazingly, I had, and then throw it into the little basket.
Yeah.
And then go on. I thought, oh, this is really an example of going through a toll booth to actually just slow down and not just keep going ahead with our fear. Like, I can't do it. Slow down, pause, breathe, and ask, what's really going on?
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing that struck me today, real strongly, and as I was thinking of bringing you on, I want to lift up in you and in your materials, all of the questions and what you teach causes me to listen more deeply. And we live in a world where the loudest voice, is getting the energy. And what I know is if we can do what you're saying, if we can slow down, just stop for a minute. It's like, it doesn't take long, get curious, what's really going on. And then listen, we get a lot of information about what's next for us, for the other person, but that listening piece is so critical. And I think you must be in your work a great listener. And that's how you got to some of these truths, because of how profoundly it causes you to pause if you start really working, with the concepts you're talking about.
Well, I could always be a better listener, that's for sure. But one thing I wanted to add on to what you just said is, in this time there's a lot of opinions going around and beliefs. And I became curious of people that might think different than I do. Because I was finding myself, like with my mom and some of my other relatives, were taking a very different stand and view from what I had, what was going on in the world. And so I found myself becoming really impatient. And then I thought, you know what? I don't know why they think the way they think. So I just said, I'm going to ask a few of them, but I'm going to commit to not butting in or anything. So I just said, I'll use my mom, for example. Mom, tell me, what are you thinking? Why are you believing or supporting the way you are? I want to know. And it was interesting to me, her response is like, oh, okay. And she shared with me, I didn't necessarily agree with everything she said, but wow, it was a gift because I started understanding, okay, now I get why she says what she said.
Yeah.
And then I started doing that with other people that I'm in any kind of subject. And I found that what happened was so interesting is I saw a calmness come over them. Like, wow, I'm so used to defending what I believe. Exactly.
And
then sometimes they would say, well, actually, I'm not really sure. I display this. I don't know why. And I didn't want to put them on the spot, but it was such an interesting bonding experience. And
yes, right. Yeah. Right. So rather leaving in some big.
Yeah. And I even had a cousin I was with who we have a little different philosophy on politics. And I said, help me understand your reaction or what. And it was a gift, actually. And then he sent me a text, said, Karen, well, I am so used to being up in arms about defending why I believe the way I believe that no one has ever asked me why I believe that way. So I would like to, just an invitation to all of us.
Absolutely.
Curious why.
Get curious.
And it's so, it just shifts everything.
It does. And I really do believe, people told me I'm crazy for this, but I really do believe we're closer than we think. Because I think we all want peace. We all want security. We all want a way of life that we recognize. We all want to be safe. We all want to be able to trust our leaders. And so, there's another great book. I recently reread it. It's called The Power of One. And it's by Sharif Abdullah. Yeah. And I'm actually doing a series, or just finished a series rather, last month at my church in Daytona Beach on it. And it's all about like removing ourselves from the blame game, and taking responsibility. And it does change everything. And Dr. Karen, I can't say enough about your work, and I want to thank you for the work you're doing in the world. And I know we can find you through your website and that. And I also want to mention that I know you're working on a third book, which is more of like a fun kind of fantasy book, right?
Right. My sons, they're big into Dungeons and Dragons. My two youngest sons, and
oh yeah,
Mom, you should write a fantasy book. I said, okay, I don't know anything about writing fantasy. And so I said, you know what? I'm going to write it for my granddaughter and my two little grandnieces. And so it has these.
Yeah.
I want to see if I can publish it with one of the big 5 publishing. I don't know. But it's written. I'm editing it now, but it's scary. I've had to say, okay, I got to deal with my deadlines, because calling up an agent, it's like, I'm just like, who do you think you are trying to write a book? But, it's a fun little story. And I'm not into the gore or anything like that. It's just it's a little fantasy book that I hope it carries some lessons and fun for them. All of the characters are named after them.
Oh, that is awesome. That is awesome. And I know how important family is, and you and your husband do a lot of travel, and you got, like you say, kiddos and grandkids. So we honor you as a mama, as a grandmama, and as an incredible thinker. And we honor the work you're doing in the world, and the work you have done, and the work that you're still creating. And we're honored to share it with you. So my friends, thank you for joining us today on the show. I hope you will check out Dr. Karen Tilstra's work, and all the links are in the show notes. And as always, we're grateful for your love, for your support, and for your trust as we walk this journey together. So my friends, thank you for joining us today, and blessings on the journey.
Thank you.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Experience of the Soul podcast with Cynthia Alice Anderson, helping you grow, prosper, and evolve. This podcast is made possible because of listeners and viewers just like you. If you would like to support the podcast with your tax-deductible contribution on an ongoing basis or through a one-time gift, head on over to experienceofthesoul.com/support. The Experience of the Soul podcast is copyright 2025 Cynthia Alice Anderson, all rights reserved, and is produced by Shawn Kilgore. A production of the Soul Works Group, Incorporated. Thanks for joining us on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. Every Monday, you'll hear the weekly podcast, and on Wednesday evenings, the Sunday message and meditation from Unity of Daytona Beach, with more meditations and affirmations throughout the week to inspire your journey.